welcome to the BJSS webinar, How Do I Become a Better Business Analyst? This talk will be followed by an interactive Q&A, so please don't hesitate to post questions in the Q&A throughout. The Q&A can be found on the bottom panel. It's a little Q&A icon. You just click on that, it will bring a pop-up onto your screen, and then you can type your question in there throughout. We will tackle the questions at the end of the talk. I'll just cover our first slide there on what we're going to talk about. So, how do I become a better business analyst? Have you ever wondered how to become a great business analyst? What skills and knowledge do you need to become one? And how does the role of a business analyst fit into the Agile world? So our experienced BJSS speakers will be answering those questions for you in this talk and more as part of the Sheffield Digital Festival. So I'm now going to hand over to Marzena and Sean. Thanks both.
Thank you, Fern. So welcome on today's talk. So I will quickly go to the things we're going to cover today. So initially we just ran some introductions. So I'm going to introduce myself, and Sean is going to do the same. We'll be covering how you can become a better business analyst and kind of focusing on the three sections: what actually a business analyst is, what skills and knowledge you need to have to become a better one, and how the role of the business analyst actually fit into the Agile world. Then Sean will be covering what are we looking for in a business analyst at BGSS, and then there will be a time for questions. But as Fern said, feel free to just post them as we speak in the Q&A section. So who are we actually? So my name is Marzena Jagucka. I'm currently in the role of the delivery manager at BGSS, but I've got 10 years experience working as business analyst in digital technology space in various industries such as retail, insurance, and construction. So I kind of like seen a lot of in and out of the business analysis world. So over to you, Sean.
Hello, I'm Sean. I'm the talent acquisition manager here at BJSS, predominantly covering Leeds and Sheffield, because true to form of being a Yorkshireman. But I've been doing tech recruitment for 13 years across multiple different sort of industry sectors: financial services, data, media, and consultancy, to name a few there. So yeah, I still don't know the depth of a BA, obviously, as much as the BAs themselves, but I have been recruiting them for quite a number of years now, so I can sort of talk through what we look for there.
Okay. Thank you, Sean. So kind of going to the meritum of today's talk is how do I become a better business analyst? But before we actually gonna go into that, I just wanted to create a bit of the baseline for us. So we've got a shared understanding. What do we mean when we say business analysts during this talk? Because the role of the business analyst varied across like a different industry, different sectors, different organizations. It might even different depending on what methodology are you using or what projects you are currently on. So starting with, again, doing a shared understanding. So usually each organizations, they've got to like a parties involved in their work. So we've got the business people who own the organization, who's got some ideas they want to implement, they've got problems they want to tackle. And quite frequently they need IT or like technology department to help them tackle those. What I've learned, and I think people in general in the industry learn, that those people speak different languages. So like business people speak business language and IT speaks technical language. So quite often it is difficult for them to explain what they actually want to achieve. Hence the role of the business analyst as a kind of like a middleman between those two parties that act, the way I see it, as a translator between business and IT to help those two parties to achieve the common goal. So translate the business language into the more technical one, and then technical responses into more business, like layman terms for the business to understand. So basically, that's kind of the term we will be referring to as a business analyst in this talk. So what skills and knowledge you need to become a better business analyst. Because again, you can have, as I said, the role of the business analyst is so wide that it differs between different organizations, sectors, and industry. So it really depends where you sat at what you do. But the skill set and the knowledge I will be talking about, it's quite universal. So regardless where do you sit on the scale of the business analyst scale, you're gonna find those useful. So I kind of broke them down into like a soft skills and like a knowledge, hard skills. So the things that gonna differentiate you and make you become better in your field. So in terms of the soft skills, again, communication skills, that's the first one you can see on the job description. That as a business analyst, you're required to have a really good communication skills, but it rarely say what exactly in terms of those communication skills you need to have, you need to be good at. So the things that I see that really present in a really great business analyst is the skill to active listen on what people are saying. Again, I think that's quite useful skill to have general in life. I find it really help with your relationships, but like especially important in the role as a business analyst, because you need to listen to what people are saying, ensure them that they felt listen, repeat the information. So again, to confirm your understanding. So that is really, really important one for you to get those information in and then create the right requirements. What kind of goes next as a key skills under the umbrella of the communication skills is I call like a courageous questioning. So not being afraid to ask questions, because again, by asking a question, you are uncover more layers of the problem, because quite often what I've learned, people are just coming to you with like a problem or with idea, and their first bit is not exactly what they are trying to solve. So that courageous questioning allow you to go deeper and deeper and understand exactly what they are after and why they need it. What I found really good as a business analyst is as well sometimes ask those very simple or tend to say like a stupid questions that you feel like, yeah, people know them already, but that kind of allow you to get your audience, your stakeholders to stop for a second and think, actually, that is a really good question. Why are we doing this? So it again allow you as the business analyst to gather the more information and more knowledge about what people are trying to achieve and how to solve it. Then, because you are getting all those information from different sources, and again, as a BA, you need to comprehend quite a lot of information. So ability to comprehend them quickly, again, gonna make you a better business analyst, because you are attending workshops with like business people, with technical people. So ability to kind of use the active listening and the questioning, but then comprehend the information so then you can dive deeper. Again, is something I see that is a skill of great business analyst. Then, of course, another one on the list of the job description, analytical skills. Again, what does it mean? So as the business analyst, we are not note takers. So we don't really take on what people are saying us. So we kind of take those information, but then we apply analytical skills to ensure that we go to the bottom of the problem. What help us in that is just that critical thinking, again, looking at the problem and trying to break it down into the smaller chunks, asking the right questions to actually see what is the problem that people are trying to solve. Curiosity, this is something I feel is crucial to be a great BA, having that like curious mind, again, not afraid to ask questions, but diving deeper and deeper. So you can actually fully understand the requirements, but then solution the bottom of the problem and create the really good requirements. And then part of the analytical skills is like questioning assumptions. So that kind of links into what I talked about, being courageous in questioning. Sometimes people come to you with like pre-assumptions. They come in and they assume that everybody's on the same page. But I think our role as a business analyst is to question those assumptions and then kind of go to the bottom of them. So again, we've got a shared understanding with our stakeholders, so we can create better requirements, and as a result of that, better solutions to the problems. And the last one in that section is like holistic approach. Again, we are taking the information on the particular problem or the idea, but we need to apply the holistic approach. So not look at the things in isolation. It is just looking how this change on how this solution is going to impact the wider world. What's going to be impact on the business? What's going to be impact on the technology? What's the operational impact? How we need to consider data, any legislations, limitations, any like a usability angle. So again, during that analysis part of the business analyst role is applying that holistic approach and look on the wider picture. That is also quite important to look at the problem on kind of like a wider scale. Also look at the different moments of time when you're looking at the problem. Calling from our team, he shared a really good metaphor for me that as a business analyst, you need to have access to different lenses, depending how far you need to look at the problem. So initially look at the problem as it stands right now. But as a business analyst, we need to also try to look ahead in the future and see whether that solution or the problem is going to appear in the future and how that's going to fit in, even though our stakeholders didn't ask us, yeah, I want that to work, I don't know, in 3 months' time, but kind of looking at that, yeah, what is coming and applying that into your analysis, gonna again enable you to create better requirements. And one of my favorites one is being versatile. This is again something I believe differentiate and make you better business analyst, the ability to learn like different hats. So from one side is not being afraid to step in the role that is not just your immediate role of the business analyst. So let's say if the project manager or delivery manager on your team is off, you can step in, or like testers got a really big backlog, you then can help with testing. But on the other side as well, actively being involved in what they do, because again, that will enable you to understand what are their needs and what their problems. So then you can apply the better analysis on whatever you're doing. So that is kind of the section of the soft skills. Then moving into more like a knowledge, hard skills one. So again, as a BAs, we need to have a really good requirements toolkit. So again, we need to know our stuff. So basically know what we need to apply and when. So if you as a business analyst work in an Agile environment, you know that the requirements are created in a user story format, and the bare minimum for that to be a really good user story, it needs to meet invest criteria. So it's not something that you need to research every single time you're on a project. You basically know that off your shelf. If you work in more traditional project setup in Waterfall, you're going to prepare the business requirements document with your requirements. So again, you know how the template look like. You've got probably template that you can use. It's not something that you need to revisit every single time you're on the project. Then being like a fast and willing learner, that's kind of sit in between like a hard, soft skill. But I just wanted to kind of point it in here because as a business analyst, we are usually put on a very different projects. So it might range on anything or everything you can think of. So our role is to be able to fast learn, because I feel that that's going to help you to become more productive very quickly. So you can work on a different products, you can work on a different applications, but you can also have a different toolkit available to you. So let's say on one project you work in Jira, on the other one you work on TFS, and the other one you use Word document or something different. You are a fast learner, so you can learn those new technologies quicker, so then ask the right questions and become valuable very quickly. And the other side as well, being willing learner. So I see it as actively seeking ways to learn new things. So kind of, again, not stuck to your day-to-day role, but actively looking for the way to improve and increase your knowledge. So let's say on the project you are currently working on, you're working on developing the software solution, but then you've learned that it requires like consultations with the legal department. So again, make yourself available to be involved in those discussions, because then you're gonna learn what those people need, how they're gonna fit into this particular project, but that's gonna also equip you with the knowledge and experience that you can apply for your future project, which all gonna make you a more rounded PA. And the one that I kind of feel is quite crucial that we tend to forget, and again, I'm quite guilty of this myself as well, review the basics if in doubt. Quite often, if we are really stuck in the project and we absorb all the knowledge about the problem, what we're trying to do in here, you're kind of really stuck into that particular domain, then you tend to forget the basics. So it is quite good and refreshing sometimes to come back to your basics. So as I said, like, what is the great user story look like? So have those things available for yourself in your toolkit, like a trusted resources that you can come back to and say, okay, yeah, that's the basics that I need to remember of when we kind of got into being too engaged in the project. So that's in terms of like a skills and knowledge. Again, I believe gonna make you a better business analyst. And again, from my experience and talking to the wider business analyst community. So then the next section is kind of what does it mean to be an agile business analyst? Because the previous section, as I said, is quite universal. So regardless what methodology you are using in your particular project, when you're gonna apply those skills, it's just gonna make you a better business analyst. But nowadays it is quite popular to be an agile business analyst, but people sometimes struggle to know what does it mean, especially if you're new to agile and you start with, okay, I'm gonna Google agile, and the first thing is gonna probably show up is the Scrum guide. You read the Scrum guide, and then you've got the information that in the delivery team, in the Scrum team, you've got product owner, Scrum master, and development team. So then you kind of feel, oh, so where do I sit as a business analyst? And I remember being that person as well. So then I'm thinking, okay, so I'm a product owner, because then you think, okay, product owner actually work with the product, work with the requirements, but is that actually a case? So from my experience and what we do at BGSS, but also with my previous organization, agile business analyst is usually the person that sits within development team, that additional resource who works closely with the development team to help them create better solution. Because product owners, they usually focus on much more like a holistic view of the product. They are there to maximize the value of the product, but they're not really great in getting into the nitty-gritty details to fully understand how to talk to developer. Again, I'm saying that might vary depending on your project. You might be quite lucky and have amazing product owner, but in most cases, we need that extra person to help create a better solution. So what does it actually mean to be agile business analyst? So the key difference, I think, in comparison to more traditional one is agile business analyst is focusing on just-in-time requirements. So again, you don't look at the things up front and gathering everything that you want, but you just look at just-in-time requirement based on the current knowledge and the current information you've got available. That is quite good in a sense that you're only making efforts to learn what is available and important right now. But that also might be quite a big trap, because as I've mentioned earlier, you need to look at the things holistically. And sometimes as agile business analysts, we look on the very tiny user story and we forget to put that in the bigger picture. So again, being aware of that, the just-in-time requirement means that they're just in times, but also considering the bigger holistic view. Then as agile business analysts, you are more like required to interact with people other than like doing processes and documentation. Again, that's the really good output, but interactions as an Agile business analyst means that you talk to the people constantly, but Agile allow you to have the meaningful and structured conversations by having like the meetings like Three Amigos, which is the conversation between business analyst, tester, and developer to have a shared understanding of the problem, about the solution and the testing approach. You can get those conversations very early on, as soon as you learn about the requirement, about the problem, and get their input into, I don't know, feasibility, let's say. Is it even possible to resolve that technically? Or are there any limitations in the testing? So that will help you to create, again, better requirements for them in the future. And then Three Amigos can also be applied just before the team is picking up that particular ticket. They can then agree the shared understanding and ensure that they tackle the right problem in the right way. Agile also allow you to have like a backlog refinement sessions, which is again, speaking to the development team, ensuring that they've got a shared understanding of the requirement, but they also provide you with the estimate of how much time that work will take. Those just-in-time requirements are written in the format of the user stories, which again are very small chunk of work, so you can deliver the value quickly. Interactions also mean that you not only interact with your development team while they developing the ticket with your stakeholders before the requirements coming in, but you also kind of on the end of the cycle. So you, as soon as the work is delivered, you engage with your stakeholders and provide them with the feedback. So you are involved in like showcases or show and tell to your product owner, to your stakeholders, to show them what actually has been done and gather the feedback. That's going to then feed into the further requirements. So then kind of cover being involved in the whole software development lifecycle. So from the point when we've just learned about the requirements, from like a discovery, design through the development, and then implementation. And when we decide actually to close down the product or something. So having a really good understanding of that software level development lifecycle, how to become better business analyst, better agile business analyst. And then last one is just having agile mindset. So again, being aware that as agile business analyst, you need to be quite adaptable, and that the things that are available are usually just a framework. So even though you work as an agile and let's say in a Scrum framework, that is just kind of a skeleton for you to operate in, and you need to be quite pragmatic into applying certain like the techniques and tools and conversations. So constantly having that agile mindset really help to be a really good agile business analyst. So that's it in terms of like my part of the section about how to become a better BA. So now I'm gonna hand over to Sean to talk about what are we looking for in business analysts at BJSS. Over to you, Sean.
Well, thanks, Marzena. I was taking loads of notes, but I don't know why. When yeah, I can get the slides. Force of habit, I think. Marzena's going to drive my slides for me because she's awesome, and I'm also less pretty with slides, so I just throw GIFs in. So I apologise for that. We can't beat a bit of JT. But what do we look for? So for us at BJSS, it's really that latter part of what Marzena was talking about, and specifically around the sort of agile business analyst side of things. So I guess there's two things. There's the experienced BAs that we do look for, but we do have a early careers pathway for career returners, people retraining, graduates and apprentices that cover our sort of more entry-level roles, which I'm happy to talk to anybody about sort of separately if they do want to catch up on that. But one of the big things for us is that agile knowledge, and I think it's as Marzena was talking about, evidencing that knowledge throughout that CV. I think what we can be quite guilty of is talking about things but not actually talking about the detail of those, particularly following on from that. You've got the experience across the full SDLC as well. So again, it's something I think often in whatever role that we do, we kind of know what we've done, and it's trying to get that across a lot of the time. And when you're facing off with people like me as recruiters, as the first people that are looking at your CV, you know, before it even hits people like Marzena, who will be a hiring manager for us, we're really trying to see a bit more evidence around actually that experience of delivering enterprise software projects. And again, that working closely with development teams, which Marzena touched on. Again, it can be taken for granted the type of interactions that you do have within your role as a BA. But we kind of want to see that evidence, because there are times, depending on what projects you're working on or the teams that you're working in, that actually may not have that interaction. So maybe a few of you on that, and you've got a lead BA that's doing all that facing off, and you may be doing a lot more of the documentation side of things. So we kind of want to see that evidence as well. And I think following on from that is just how your role actually fits in within that cell or that squad or whatever people want to call them these days. It's hard to keep up. But actually, you know, the role that you've played within that, but understanding the different roles and the part that they play within that. So again, you can have that quite clear conversation or getting it across on a CV to someone like myself, that you were interacting with the development teams and the testers, like with the three amigos. You do have that regular touch point in with the product owner and really understanding what we're trying to drive out of that development and that next phase, that next sprint. I'm really just avoiding that buzzword bingo. So one thing that you see quite a lot, and we're all guilty of it, is we kind of put in all these, you know, like I was talking about there, Agile, SDLC, you know, we'll mention all those words, but there's no real context to it. So it's kind of telling that story of what you've done, which I find invaluable, because it leads on so many great conversations, firstly with the recruiter, but also then with the hiring managers as well, because you start to get rid of any assumptions of what you may have done or may not have done, but actually I can see that you may not have done this what we kind of do like to see, but you've done all of this, which we really like to see, which is awesome. So we're still going to speak to you, but it's nice to get that understanding of, you know, what part did you play? I've seen in the past where people call themselves a lead BA and the only BA. So of course they're the lead BA because they're the only one on there. But then I speak to someone else who may have been a lead BA, and then may have been three BAs in there within that team, right? So it's, you know, telling that story does make that difference. And following on, I guess it's more on that application side of things, all of the Simpsons, as you can tell. So communication style comes across a lot on this. There's a whole debate around the length of your CV and should you get it all onto 2 pages. I'm going to be honest, every single recruiter or hiring manager that you put your CV in front of will have a different preference on this. I don't mind a 2-page CV. I don't mind a 4-page CV. Over 4, I tend to, you know, there tends to maybe be a bit too much in there. But for me, it's about the content and that communication style. So as Marzena was talking around being a BA, you're taking a lot of these requirements and breaking that down into something much more manageable and very clear. And as recruiters and as hiring managers, that's something we are looking at, is actually, you know, you're trying to tell your story here of what you've done in that role and what you've delivered. And that's coming across into your CV, right? Is how you break all that information down to get that key clear information across to us. So it's really imperative to keep a look at that and personalize it, right? You know, you've got the option of cover letters and various different ways to get across any more detail that you do want to, but make sure it comes across as you. And again, it's an art form, isn't it, CV? I critique them all day. I hate writing my own, but you know, it's a thing where you want to get your personality across as much as you can as well, because we are humans at the end of the day. And you know, if people are looking at a lot of CVs, you know, some recruiters are fortunate where they'll get a lot of interest on roles and a lot of CVs coming in. You want yours to stand out a bit, right? And trying to personalize it and get a bit more across it. Maybe that, you know, interest of stuff you're doing, the community around events or stuff with diversity and inclusion, or various different things, right? Get that stuff in there, because that's stuff that people love to see. And areas you may like showing aptitude. So particularly if you're a BA and you're on the beginning of your journey, or actually, you may be wanting to get into that agile world, but you've just not been able to at your current employer, and we see that a lot. What we want to look for there is the aptitude and willingness to go and learn, and kind of what Marzena touched on is that, go out and find that information and have that curious nature and mind. Use your cover letter or your CV to showcase the learning that you've done around attending Agile Yorkshire, for example, to mingle with peers and learn from them, and the reading that you may have done. So that goes a long way as well. So where you do have those gaps, because none of us hit a job spec 100%, right? Just showcase, where you are, really pushing yourself out, because that goes a long way. And a really silly one, but it really bugs me. Just make sure your social media matches your CV as well. You'll be surprised at how many CVs I get. And then we look at the LinkedIn and the dates, and employers are all over the place. And you just think, that just doesn't tally, especially when you've provided a link. So just make sure your social media just sort of marries up to your CV, which sounds really daft, but you'll be amazed at how often you see totally random dates and employers thrown in there. But I wanted to keep it short and sweet because it's the less exciting bit, but happy to questions for both of us, I guess.
Thanks. So I think it's now over to you, Fern.
I think she's gone. She's gone to the pub for lunch.
Hi, yeah, sorry, had a bit of an issue coming off mute there. So yes, thanks both. That was absolutely brilliant presentation. So we've got a couple of questions. So how technical do I need to be to become a business analyst?
I'm happy to take this one on. So as I've mentioned, you need to have understanding. It doesn't mean that you need to know like everything about being technical and how the things are developed. But I think it's just having a good understanding so you can ask the right questions to the right people, and using that like curious mind yourself and asking questions and being willing learner will enable you to get more like a technical expertise. But we don't think pull people away when they are not completely non-technical, because again, as a business analyst, the roles are really wide. So you might be more focused on the business side, but then we may have a business analyst who came from like a technical background. So you kind of have a good understanding, but so you know how to ask the questions. Very long-winded answer for the question.
That was brilliant. How do you see the BA role sitting with service designer and user experience designer roles?
That's a really good question. So again, it really depends on the project you're at. So as I said, quite important part of the BA role is being versatile. So if you've got user designer and user researcher, please do use those people. Again, I see it as a bonus from the BA point of view, because then you've got experienced people who can actually do this work for you and fit into your requirements and kind of make them more detailed and create a better solution. So that is a great if you've got that on your project. What I've learned quite often on the projects, you just don't have those people. So this is again some hat that we as a BA just needs to wear.
Perfect. And then we have another question. How do you manage the performance of a BA?
I love this question because it is always an issue, isn't it? Because I think as a business analyst, we quite often do things that are not that tangible that you can easily measure with some like KPIs. That's a really good question. Let me have a think how to answer it. I think it's having a good understanding of what the role is required. I wouldn't really measure the BA with like a strict, I don't know, KPI saying you need to create that many user story or that many documents within a certain period of time. I would just measured them by the feedback of like 360 feedback from the stakeholders and from the team that they work with, and then see how many then questions you've got on the back of the requirements, let's say, how many potential like issues are coming out of the work done, and kind of learning from that. But I would definitely base that on the 360 feedback.
Amazing, thanks, Marzena. Do you have service designers in your team as well as BAs?
Short answer, no.
That was a quick one. Then we have another one. How do you see the BA role change as you become more experienced?
I think you are able to appreciate like the basic things. So again, I'm just talking from my experience, because my journey was quite interesting one, because I started as a pensions administrator and then kind of used the skills I had to become a business analyst. And then now I'm a delivery manager. But I think you kind of appreciate the basics, because when you are quite early in the career, you rely on those like knowledge and information you can get out there from people. But when you get further into your journey, you become more experienced. So you've got some of those things under your belt, but then being able to come back to those basics. So as I mentioned on the talk, is don't forget about the basics and also revisit them quite frequently, because they might also change. Yeah, just appreciate the basics, I think.
We have quite a difficult question there. So which companies does BJSS contract to in the Sheffield area? So I know there's some that we can't mention.
So this is a great question, Leanne, and I started typing. I always err on the side of caution, because I'm definitely one of those people that will list the wrong side of the NDAs, the ones that are fully NDA'd. So to be more generic, we cover both public and private sectors. Everything from healthcare, government, financial services, media, betting and gaming, utilities, retail, oil and gas, you name it. There's probably a client we work with, from smaller UK based companies right through to global brands that you'll see on a high street, that we work with as well. But yes, sorry to be very, very generic. And also actually a bonus point to being fully remote at the moment is, we've got people working on projects with clients that you just wouldn't even get in the Yorkshire area if you were on site as well. So that's quite cool. But yeah, sorry for the very generic answer, Leanne.
Thank you for jumping in there, Sean. That's brilliant. And then we have another question here. So how have you found the transition from very detailed requirements to just enough, and did it feel uncomfortable?
Yeah, it did feel uncomfortable. So I remember like my transition from like being a very Waterfall business analyst to being an Agile business analyst, where I was kind of owning that everything was on my head and my plate to find the right requirements, speak to the right people. And I like that ownership. And then suddenly kind of getting into engaging with like different parties, that interactions you've got and getting them fit into the requirements. So that was quite unsettling. I just need to admit that I found it quite difficult having that transition, but then realized that it is just much better in a sense that you only got a limited knowledge at the stage you are doing requirements anyway. And I like them right now because I don't spending time thinking about something that not going to happen in the future, or I just don't know. And then had to, or something changed in a week time and I had to rewrite a 30 pages long business requirement document. So yeah, transition was hard, but I'm glad that I'm more on the other side.
Thanks, Marzena. And then last question here. So what difference has the pandemic made to your ways of working and flexible working?
You do the first part and I'll do the second part. Your ways of working change, Marzena?
It definitely impacted how I work as a BA, and I think like how we work in general. I think some of the things become more difficult, especially those interactions that you would have with people that I mentioned that are quite crucial to get like the right requirements in. Like active listening, it is much more difficult in the remote world because you just can't, it's quite difficult to see all people like nodding on the call or them doing like a weird noises that I sometimes make so it is much more difficult, and I think you just need to be aware about those limitations and take an extra steps to reduce the impact. And I think what I've done like with my teams is allowing the time on those meetings we've have for those like 5 minutes, even like the social interactions when you just chat about things not work related. So people still can build relationship. You can build a rapport with your stakeholders and the team, and that will allow you to build a trust, better relationship, and then get better at your role. So Sham, about
the flexible working. So for the last, it'll be, is it 14 months now? I've lost track of time, to be honest. We've been fully remote, and the offices have been open for people with under government guidelines if they do need to go in to make sure we're supporting our employees. But we're moving to a hybrid model of working, so it's highly unlikely that when we get back to what normal, as in we can all be in the same room together without restrictions, it's highly unlikely people need to be on site 5 days a week. So we fully embraced the remote working. Our teams have done fantastic at pivoting to it overnight when the first lockdown did kick in. So yeah, we've got a hybrid working model now, and we keep opening more offices, right, where our client base expands. We do invest in those locations for lots of reasons. So we opened 4 UK offices last year, as well as 1 in Australia and 1 in Lisbon of all years to do it. So we still have that local investment and feel and delivery to things as well.
Thank you so much, both. I just have one last question. So how successful can a project be without a business analyst?
One of the difficult one. I think it really depends. I kind of see business analyst as a role, not necessarily kind of a person. So if we don't have the named BA, somebody still would need to do that work. And again, from my experience, projects with no BA struggled because there was that like communications issues between like a business and like a technical team, some assumptions made that weren't really judged and questions. So it usually causes issues. But again, I would say it really depends on the project and on the people you've got. If you've got people without a title, but who is willing to ask those questions and wear that BA hat, that could be quite successful project.
Amazing. We just had a question come in whilst you were talking then. So what is the best lesson you could share on what you've learned or what you do differently when more moving from Waterfall to Agile BA?
I like this question. What I've learned, I think, is relying on other people knowledge a lot and kind of like embracing that I don't have to know everything, and I just need to use like my skills and like techniques and like questioning to get those information from the right people. Because I think, and kind of like relying more on technical knowledge from a developer. I think moving from like Waterfall to Agile allowed me to have access to like more people with the knowledge that I can basically use, rather than just me being in isolation trying to figure out the things by myself, or just trying to organize the meetings with the right people, but I might not know who are the right people. But working Agile is more like a collaborative environment, so you've got access and you know who you can ask the question easier. So I think I would say that, but probably if I have time to think, I'll have plenty others.
Thank you so much. Thanks both. That was an absolutely brilliant talk, and thank you to all of the attendees for coming as well, and coming to listen to our talk here. Thanks both.
So before we're gonna disappear, I just wanted to also, sorry. So in the presentation, I believe that's going to be also shared. I've added a couple of like useful resources that you can have a look into if you want to learn more about like Agile. The best one to go to is like Scrum.org. It doesn't only cover the Scrum, but like the Kanban and all other things, and you can have a lot of like talks, articles, blog posts, really good one. Then there's a page, Business Analysis Expert. They've got really good trainings as well for the BAs, how to write a good user stories, what questions to ask to stakeholders. So again, that could be part of your toolkit. And of course, feel free to link with us on LinkedIn if you've got any further questions. I'm happy to answer them like on the LinkedIn as well. And yeah, thank you. And thank you for all the questions. They were really, really nice questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Lindsay, for your comment. So Lindsay said, thanks very much. Really like the soft skills detail and the insight into recruitment view. Thanks very much. And thanks all.